I hope it's worth waiting for me. I got stuck in traffic. Somebody told me once, anything you want to do in life, something good, there will be lots of hurdles put in front of you. Why? Because the universe wants to test whether you have the patience. This is what I learned in my 30 years of work in intensive care in pediatrics. Because it's always life and death. It's not just like GP's work, where you can give some medicine, you don't know what's wrong, just dish out an antibiotic and tell the patient to come back 3 weeks later. If you're not getting better, that's called safety net. I don't know what I'm doing, but I definitely give you a prescription. So that you go home happy, thinking you're going to get better. That's what we did in the last 10 to 15 years. I was sitting in the intensive care without taking dead children, but as the GPs were having a pushy time, dishing out antibiotics. What did we do? We enjoyed ourselves, but it's not you who's going to die. Enjoy yourself, because we don't have any antibiotics left for you. We just finished all the drugs in our closet. So you are going to be in trouble. That's the reason I thought I will come here and share my experience so that you will know what to do and how to deal with this situation. And I'm talking about clinical acumen. What is clinical acumen? It's basically a judgment, a good judgment, and you have to take it fast. This happens every day in your life as a doctor, as a chemist, as a nurse, in all walks of life as well. But it is very important in healthcare. Why? Because the patient might die and there's nothing you can do. You don't have the time. So you have to decide who needs help, who doesn't, who can wait. And this discrimination is one of the toughest things any doctor can do, because everything looks like common. Cough, fever, sore throat, headache. Everybody suffers this. Certainly not. There will be at least about 20% of the people having a serious illness with the same symptom. You are sitting in the chemist shop dispensing drugs. People come there thinking you have the knowledge. Oh, I've got a headache, what do I do? Oh, take paracetamol and go. He goes home with the paracetamol. 48 hours later, he was found dead because he had a severe stroke and intracranial hemorrhage. How do you deal with this? It's okay, he's dead and gone. I'm not worried about it. But you, I'm worried, because you have to cope with this. I have done that all my life. I declare death because I'm the one who takes the decision. Yes, no more resuscitation. It's a hard decision to make. The church called me and said, can you give us a talk? I said, what is it about? You play God. I said, no, I don't play God. I just resuscitate people. He said, no, you are the one who declares death. It's a huge responsibility, and that is very important. So, clinical acumen. So why do you need this? Because tomorrow you want to be facing infections which we don't have a cure for. So how are you going to identify that? How are you going to identify it's infected? What are you going to do with it? You're going to get infected. It happened in 2015. Majority of the people who died were people like you and me, who tried to save people or help them, and then I'm dead. So we need to develop this strategy where we can. So come in. Yeah. Okay. Good. It's all to do with today's talk. If you go home with a conscious mind and think, I can cope with this. I'm not going to get hurt. I'm going to live. And I'm also going to make sure that the patient is also going to home happy and safe. So my job now is to protect you and protect me. Till I came here to talk, Ashim called me last year, and when I came here I realized it's not me should be worried about. It's not the nurses I should be worried about. It's not the hospital I should be worried about? I should be worried about the chemist, because you are the gatekeeper. Everybody comes to you first, not me. They come to the chemist, Boots. Oh, I just got this cough, I got a rash, I don't know what to do with it. And the poor chemist over there, not being trained, is advising the patient. Oh, you can put on this cream, this is a good one. Why? Because her auntie had this steroid cream, which was very good, so it got it better. Gives one steroid cream, but no white. What happens? The rash flares up. It's like putting kerosene on fire. Steroid suppresses the inflammation, increases the infection. And that's going to happen, it's already happening. So you need to know how to protect yourself and make sure the patient is also protected. Intuition. Einstein, my great teacher, I say, because he's helped me to understand myself. Intuition. What is intuition? It is basically a gut feeling. You see somebody and you suddenly start thinking, there's something wrong with this fellow. You don't know, but the hunch, I call it, is very important. So many times people ask me, you walk into the intensive care and you say this child is going to die. Half an hour later, the child is being resuscitated because the heart rate stopped. How did you know that? I said, I don't know. I didn't have a clue. But I was able to do that. Why? Because I was getting the intuitions. Something is not right. I felt uncomfortable. And then acted upon it. And that is what he said. Intuitive mind is a gift from God. It's a gift from universe. The rational mind are the ones who follow it. Yes, I did create a guidelines. I collected 100 cases of upper respiratory tract infection, tonsillitis associated with streptococcus infection. Out of that, I found only 8 out of 10 had streptococcus, whereas 20 didn't. This was what we were doing in 1980s to find out whether we are doing the right thing. UTI, which is the commonest antibiotic, which is the commonest organisms. So we created a guidelines for ourselves to make our job easier, better, so that the patient is not going to go home with wrong antibiotics, treated wrongly. What happened? E. coli, 70%, 30% something else. And the 70% responded to trimethoprim, the first drug of choice, trimethoprim. Yes, somebody stole our idea, created what is known as evidence-based medicine. And they created another thing called NICE guidelines. And the NICE guidelines, National Institute of Clinical Excellence. What does it tell you? It's an excellent institution in the world. So the whole world now, in the last 10 years, following these footsteps, have made a major disaster. We had MRSA in 1980s, 1990s. Allowing that to multiply has resulted in losing 18 bacteria, 28 antibiotics, viruses and fungus have become resistant. Why? Because they were all treated with the wrong dose, low dose, not necessary dose. Everybody who came to the clinic got a prescription, trimethoprim. All 3 have gone now. We don't have 3, only 3 which work on E. coli is gone. Nitrofurantoin, I used to shit bricks, I would say, when I prescribed, because it had so many side effects. I don't want to make a young girl with a UTI to go home with nitrofurantoin. Now that is the only drug left, I believe. What's going to happen if that runs out? Will you be sitting next to the toilet all your life because you have urgency of urination? What kind of life are we going to lead? So it is very important, intuition. So that's what he said, rational mind just follows. So when we did that, because our intuition, the rational mind is following like puppets, parrots, not thinking. I was in India 3 weeks ago working on one of my projects, and there was dengue fever. Everybody is thinking, oh, dengue fever, no problem, kill the mosquitoes, you'll be all right. No, you're not going to be all right because they multiply every 24 hours. So, if you go into a hospital because you have a cold, you come home with dengue fever. Why? Because there is another person with dengue fever sitting there. A mosquito has a very good population. It just sucks blood from a dengue fever fellow, comes and gives it to you. You are in trouble. So I was scared to get up. And there's another, in my native place where I was born, it's called Udupi. I wanted to go and see my grandmother. I couldn't because H1N1 was spreading like wildfire. There's a medical school there from all over the villages. People were coming H1N1 and they were spreading amongst themselves. Maximum death was happening there. Overnight, 1,500 cases of H1N1. Where are you going to mobilize the care for these people? I wrote in 1996, everybody comes to us with a symptom of an illness as they remember and as they have experienced. It is our duty to listen to it and offer a solution, not a prescription. The pharmaceutical company wants to crucify me, the health authorities want to crucify me, hospitals want to keep me and bury me in with no stones left. Why? Because they all depend upon you going to the hospital. They all want us to prescribe. Medicine is not a branch of prescription. It is a branch, which is a service offered to humanity to offer them help, alleviate pain and suffering. We never cured anything. Have you ever come across any drug which cures anything? Is there anybody who's got an idea? Any drug which cures some illness? Yes, we did have one, antibiotic. Now it's gone. Even the malaria drug doesn't work. There's no guarantee. 50%, not 100% like it used to be. So that's what I meant. Listen and offer a solution. And everybody is blaming GPs. Basically because they are saying everything is a common illness. And then we have to keep the common illness people at home. So I asked this question, what is a common illness? Because every common symptom which patients has, there is 10 to 20% of the people with the same symptom developing serious problems. Sore throat can be an early sign of leukemia. So sore throat is not just tonsillitis. Now it is predicted by 2050 more people will be dying than cancer and all the illnesses put together with infection. And nobody talks. Everybody is scared. Yeah, what do we do? What do we do? You have to think, be logic. Can't bring the emotions into it. Yes, my daughter might die tomorrow. But if I bring the emotion into it, what am I going to do? I can't find a solution. But we need to find a method to prevent that happening. I'm saying, if you go to Brixton, you might get mugged. Why? Because there is knifing, stabbing going on. People are hitting one another, shooting one another. So please don't go there. Yes? You're sitting here, you don't know what's happened in Arden Center last week. And then you don't listen. No problem. I am going. Yeah, you please go. But you're the one who's going to be in trouble, not me. So I told the politicians, this is going to be a disaster. We cannot allow unethical medical practice to continue. In fact, I challenged pharmacists prescribing drugs. I challenged nurses prescribing drugs. Because prescription is not the criteria. The most important thing is to identify the cause. If you are unable to diagnose a condition, how can you prescribe anything? I think 10 times before I prescribe any drugs. If I am supposed to take amoxicillin for sore throat, I'll probably pop in like that, no problem. But if I have to advise somebody, I think 100 times. Because that can produce side effects, that can have consequences. Now, superbug development is much higher if I give an antibiotic. So, you have to be very careful what you advise. If it happens to be somebody else, not you. So, this is what I did. NHS is telling everybody, all the children must be taken to chemist if they have flu. What? Fever, coughs, colds. I mean, children are one of the most difficult patients you can deal with. I must have been crazy. I worked with children for 20 years. It's like veterinary science. They don't tell anything. First, you need to find out who is the patient. Because is the mother who is worrying or is the child ill? If the mother has psychiatric problems, she thinks the child is going to die if she's paranoid. So, you have to first identify mother and the child, and then you have to address both the issues. It's not only treating, giving prescription, you take it to home, go, no problem. So that's what happens. So I challenged. Then I didn't get anywhere. So what do? I pray God. He said Dalai Lama. So he comes and signs my book and says, God bless you. Whatever it is, I've done what I can. But now my duty, my job is to educate everybody, including the patients, you, the nurses, junior doctors, to understand what prescribing drug is all about and what are the consequences. So I'm going to take you through a journey. Initially, I'll show you something about evolution, because you need to understand the origin of life before starting to deal with it. If you don't know how we came into existence and what are we made up of, how can you treat them? Nobody has understood this. They think, oh, no problem, give penicillin. That doesn't work like that. So you have to understand evolution, so the origin of life. How did we come into existence? And this is a video, I hope it plays.
The history of Earth is unimaginably long. If it were sped up to the equivalent of a single day, all of humankind, from the earliest skeletons to the invention of the iPhone, would have occurred in only the last 4 seconds. Dinosaurs were still roaming Earth about 20 minutes before that. But the creation of our planet occurred more than 23 hours earlier, 2 cycles on this clock, or 4.5 billion years ago.
Initially, when the world was very volatile and there was only gases, very toxic, methane, carbon dioxide, toxic, very, very toxic the gases. The temperature was very high. And the first and the foremost thing which happened at that time were just elements like calcium, potassium, magnesium. There were lots of metallic thingies around. So they all combined together, and by some chance, amino acids were produced. And when once amino acid they converted themselves, there are only 4 amino acids in a DNA. Anybody has got a clue what it is? AT, adenosine, tyrosine, guanine, and cytosine. These are the 4 amino acids which interlock. And the whole life depends upon these 4 amino acids. So what happened was DNA kind of a thing was formed, and the first cell which was formed, basically this is how these building blocks were created. A membrane was formed, and later on the RNA, ribonucleic acid, which went in, and that's called prokaryotes. So prokaryotes were actually single cellular. The one on this one as a single cell, and it's got a nucleoid. There's no nuclear membrane. It's got pili and it's got flagellum. So this is the primitive cell which formed. A few million years later, some meteor or something came onto Earth, bringing in a virus, and that we think is called mitochondria, which went inside. The problem with this one is it was only producing 2 molecules of ATP, adenosine triphosphate, which was not enough for the cell to multiply, to produce different species. So when the mitochondria came in, it could make 32 molecules of ATP. So it had so much energy, which started multiplying. And the first organisms which were formed were not human-like, but they were plants, because they could use the carbon dioxide to make more energy. At that time, the carbon dioxide is very high, so they were using that and releasing oxygen. As the oxygen level went up, it's called green evolution. The cells which needs and thrives on oxygen started coming in. So this happened some 3.5 to 4 billion years ago. So there's not much difference between the prokaryotes and the eukaryotes. Only this one has got mitochondria and it's got organelles called Golgi bodies and things like that. So that's small functions. The most important thing in this is mitochondria. And they take longer time, whereas this one multiplies every 20 minutes. And even today, the bacteria are more or less belongs to this group. So they have existed for billions of years. And then we have the fungus and the virus. The funguses are basically, they're similar to bacteria, similar to eukaryotes because it has a mitochondria in it. And they, the first, before eukaryotes came in, fungus came up. And the fungus is the one which absorbed the carbon dioxide and released oxygen. Whereas the viruses actually are particles. They don't have life. What is it?
Pointer, you can't use it.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, it works. It's easier.
Which one is this? This one?
Yeah.
Okay. So here you can see mitochondria, and this is a virus. Virus doesn't have any organelles. It's a dust. It's a non-living substance. People talk more about virus all the time. Oh, you got virus. It's a superbug virus. I mean, I read this all the time in the media. Who the hell said there is a superbug virus? But they can't differentiate between the virus and the bacteria. Viruses don't come in seasonally alone. Every time you breathe in, you're breathing in virus. Every time you breathe out, it is. Why? Because the bacteria cannot get into your cells. They can just get into your airway, but they can't get inside. It's like coming into the corridor, but they don't know how to get into the room. The viruses are necessary to open the door and let the bacteria come in. So that's why virus infection is 99.59% followed with the bacterial infection, because the bacteria are waiting outside thinking, how can I get inside and have the goodies? So they want to get into your body and get into the cell, and they wait. So it's always a virus. So the flu epidemic they're talking about, saying we can give vaccination and stop all this, is all bullshit, because you don't get the same species, because 10 years ago they decided this year it is going to be Haemophilus H1N1. 10 years ago they predicted. I mean, I could just do a lottery ticket and probably win more money than taking this gamble. So you've been injected with vaccinations which may not work. In the last 10 years, maybe twice the same strain came in. So if you get a virus infection, then follows the staphylococcus. That is the common one. So you can understand the difference between these two. And now the prokaryote, this is what I said. The plants are necessary to use the carbon dioxide and make oxygen. And this is called carbon cycle. If you have legumes like beans and those kind of plants, they have underneath, on the root, they have plants, they have germs there. And these germs use the carbon dioxide and make release lot of oxygen, and they call nitrogen fixation. They also fix nitrogen in the soil. So now we need plant population to change the ecosystem. There are people in London, central London, sitting there saying global warming is going to be disaster. But to tell you frankly, global warming is not going to do anything very much, because that is going to take another 100 years. Whereas this is going to make a lot of difference, because the carbon dioxide has gone up. Now the bacteria are all changing over to fungus. The fungus is spreading all around. That is going to be a major problem. So you have to look at yourself. What are we made up of? We are actually made up of 80% of water, 70 to 80%. In that, 30% are cells. But here, when you look at it, each organ has different amount of percentage of water. Yes, some of them got higher, some of them are lower. So it depends upon the cells. So most of the cells in our body, organs in our body, are made up of water, majority of them. So 70% water and 30% cells. So what are these 30% cells? They are actually, as I said, bacteria. Why? When you look at it, this is how our body is, and here are all the cells floating around. And they are basically eukaryotes. which has mitochondria in them. And we are surrounded by plants and animals. So we are not alone in this earth. If people think we are here, we are having a good time, no. Just look at the way things are mapped out. When you look at it, there are traces taken by plants, and then we have oxygen, nitrogen, carbon dioxide all around. There are also atoms spreading around. And then we have these bacteria and viruses spreading around, which you cannot see, but they all exist all around. So we are filled with, the whole universe has got lots of things in it. It's not only one. We're not, organized. We're not standing in a row. I mean, here I can see you are, but majority of the time we're not. We're not in one box. We're not set aside so that nobody is going to come and attack us. We are in the middle of a huge jungle with lots of organisms, lots of animals, lots of plants. There are plenty. We think we are the most important species on earth, but we are not. We are part of it. And bacteria, as I told you already, single cell organism, they attack other cells because they can float around, they can move, and they can do all the things necessary. Prokaryotes with or without pillage. So they have a little bit of pillage is a little extension. Some of them have it, some of them don't. So they use this pillage to communicate to the bacteria, to the other ones. They go and meet, exchange in fluids and this thing almost like sexual kind of a thing, but it doesn't work that way. So they cannot penetrate membrane, but usually remains in the blood, and that is what we call it as septicemia. When they enter your blood, they communicate. As I said, bacteria talk to one another. They also have enemies. Oh yeah, this bacteria is bad, that bacteria is bad, this virus is bad. So they fight amongst themselves, and when they die, they pick up all the leftovers. If a bacteria dies, every part of that bacteria is taken by another one. So Tom can die and the elephant comes, crushes it, breaks the bone and eats it. It's like that. Different species are doing it. It's not be the same species. So that's the reason the superbugs are spreading. Bonnie Beslan, she has taken up this bacteria. I said about 10 years ago, bacteria must be communicated one another with some kind of a chemical. Now she's taken it up. I don't know how she got the idea, but anyway, she's taken it up and she's thinking that she's going to come out with new antibiotics because 1.5 billion pounds will be given to them. So they want to get the money really. And they're thinking they can use these chemicals, identify them, and make the bacteria behave as we want them to, which is not possible because the bacteria are much stronger, they're more intelligent, and they have lived here for 5 billion years. So this is a virus. Virus, as I said, are particles. These are the viruses. They have to get into another cell because they don't have life on own. They don't need any food or water or oxygen or anything. They are also present in the desert. They're present deep in the sea. They're present all over in the volcanoes. They can't be killed by heat. So they spread all over in seconds. And this is the virus I told you about, the capsule. And it's just a gene, and it just gets in. This is bacteriophagus, which is attacking the cell of a bacteria. So they kill one another. And this is fungus, the recent one. Do you know where this fungus picture is from? This one, any idea? Athlete's foot. So if somebody has athlete's foot, you describing, this is what you see. So they are present on our body. When do we develop immunity towards fungus? As soon as we are born, we become immune to it. So only your immunity goes backwards when the immune deficiency, like you develop HIV, or if you have any immunodeficiency disorders, then you're prone to get fungus infection. They rarely infect our majority of us. But now things are changing. There's a new breed which is spreading on like wildfire. So here you can see the difference. These are all the bacteria. They're all well shaped. Based on the shape, it's called cocci. And if it is round, it's, different shapes. But these are more beautiful actually. When you look at under the microscope, the viruses, they are like spectacular, beautiful. You just fall in love with them. So what the hell, how did this virus make itself look so attractive? They're colorful, and they don't need anything to live. This is the bacteriophage, which they're thinking they can. And Ebola, this is the latest one which came up. which everybody knows. So I say knowledge of health is knowledge of life. That's what I learned. I wouldn't have learned about the ecology, I wouldn't have learned about the evolution if I hadn't understood what health is all about. So I'm sharing it with you so that you understand. So this is basically, I'm going to talk about the structure of each cell. So we are made up of bits. So when I crack open, this is what happens. You have small pieces which you can see. Continuously, if I go on beating you up, then it comes a stage where I can, this is all it is. This is an atom. There are billions and billions of atoms in every cell. Atoms, what are atoms? There are neutrons in the center. So if you say O2 is an atom, oxygen 2. That means you say it has got 2 protons in it. This is the neutron with 2 protons. And then electrons are moving around. So that's what happens. This is constant. It is always moving around. The space between 2 atoms is the universe. So they are all like that. And what do? When they move about, they produce energy. What is energy? People tell you all sorts of things. Oh, I got positive energy. I am positive. I am a spiritualist. I believe in energy. But nobody knows what energy is. I ask the simple question. What is energy? Energy is nothing but heat. Heat is the energy. ATP splits into ADP, produces heat. So every activity in a human, animal, plant needs energy. To grow, you need energy. To walk around, you need energy. I move my finger now like this, suddenly I need energy. Where does it come from? It comes from ATP. Adenosine triphosphate splits one molecule of phosphate and becomes ADP, and that split itself produces energy. And that is what this happened. How do we know you can live on energy? Just about a few years ago, they found this worm called Olivius residing in the deepest part of the ocean. It has lived there for billions of years, and it does not have any mouth. It doesn't eat anything. It doesn't have anything to get rid of its excreta. But it lives, it multiplies, and it is alive. How can it be? When they dissected it out, and they found out it has 2 layers of skin. In between these 2 layers is a layer of bacteria. The bacteria uses methane and all these toxic gases and enjoys itself with it. It's learned to live with these toxins. But it produces waste, and the waste gets inside the body, and that is used by the worm to produce energy. What a symbiotic relationship. They know both bacteria and the worm are living happily together. There's no war amongst themselves. So nobody is superior, nobody is. I depend upon you, you depend on me. It's not a parasitic relationship. And that made us think the other way. As I said, this one is a proton. This is an atom again. When it moves, it not only produces heat, it also emits light, and this is called photons. Produces red, green, yellow, and blue. So it's purple. So high energy people, like whoever is excited like me right now, I am giving more purple light. Why? Because I'm on a high positive wavelength. Whereas a person who's depressed usually sends red kind of color thing. That's why I always say if somebody is wearing red colored shirt and dress, always be careful, because they're not looking attractive because they want to look attractive or sexy. It's only because they want somebody to make them feel happy. They're red, oh, she looks gorgeous, no problem, let's go and chat to her. Yeah, she is negative. So a positive man, no problem, I am a great hero kind of a thing. And she perks up, oh, everybody's giving me attention. That's exactly what it is, these photons. When you take pictures of people using a special technique, you can get it. I didn't put that thing there. So the gist of this is, before you give anybody any chemical, you must always think 100 times. Even a vitamin pill, if you give, it can go and corrupt one of the atoms with bad things. They say vitamin is good for you. How do you know that? Why do you need so much iron? You're popping up iron, it's almost coming in the poo, it's black all the time. Why is that? You don't need that much iron. You need only this much. But the company wants to sell you so much to make more money. So they will try to promote it. I mean, wherever you go, road, Vita Biotic, this Biotic, that. I have never come across any Biotic which does anything to anybody. But people are billions of dollars. It's all money oriented. And that's what happens. This is what I said is the virus which has got into the cell. It's called mitochondria, which produces, it's called the powerhouse cell because it produces 32 molecules. The interesting thing about this is never transferred from father to the child. It's always the mother. Why? Because the sperm unites with the ova inside the womb. When once the egg is formed, the virus from the mother jumps in. And that's why it's said to be a virus. So there's only maternal mitochondria. Plants have them, animals have them, and even fungus have them. But viruses doesn't have any of these. So it's a very important structure which gives us a clue how things are. And now the second type of viruses come in. It's called plasmid. Plasmid is a circular DNA which has got into some of these bacteria, and that has got the knowledge of managing chemicals. So if you put them antibiotic or any chemical, that can break it into atoms. It just quickly dissolves it off. So any organism with this plasmid, with the technical knowledge, they transfer it from one bacteria to the other. They go, oh, no problem, have mine. So they're sharing here. And this is the pillay, which I told you about, these ones. And the pillay they use to transfer the technical know-how. So they all. So coming to inflammation, because the next important thing you have to know is you understood the structure, you understood how the evolutions occur. Now I need you to understand what inflammation is. I asked lots and lots of people a simple question. Please define this word called inflammation. Why? Because that is the basis on which all these diseases occur, including cancer. Cancer is a form of inflammation. If you haven't understood the basic, how can you call yourself a specialist in cancer? Even the cancer specialists don't know. That's a disgrace because they're treating everybody without understanding what they're treating for. So, inflammation, it's a reaction to an insult. Universe has given us the power to defend our soul. How? By inflammation. If I come and slap your cheek, immediately the body thinks, oh, something is coming, hurting me, my soul is going to die. So it's going to come and stand there. So what happens? It's defending. If it is a virus getting in, inflammatory response. If the bacteria is getting in, same thing happens. So inflammatory response, and this is what happens. So the blood circulation increases, so the swelling occurs. Because the blood circulation increases because the white cells have to be brought in. White cells are defense mechanism. They are created to protect you. So they all come in, wow, there's something coming in. So there is swelling occurs. When the swelling occurs, you start experiencing pain. And when the pain comes, because the circulation is increased, it gets hot. It's a simple way to remember. Swelling, just remember as if somebody has slapped you and what happened. So everywhere it happens. Inflammation does not necessarily a foreign body going in. It can be mental as well. I come and flirt with you like that. Wow, gorgeous, look beautiful. Whoop, the pink thing comes out on your cheek. Your eyes are dilated. That's an inflammatory process. A girl looks at a boy. Oh, he's very hot, isn't he? And then, why? He's inflamed, isn't he? So that's exactly what it is. It is a reflex. Majority of the people, as some of the people even tell me, oh, inflammation, there's no problem, it's infection. Is one of them. But antibiotics dished out. So as I told you, this is just the same. But there are two types of inflammation. One is acute, the other one is chronic. This is how you have to differentiate that. Acute ones occurs because of sudden trauma, like infection is an acute. If you get hurt, it's an acute. Cuts and frostbites and all these things. I don't have to. Something which has happened suddenly. But the chronic inflammation is our long term. Because it's been going on for a while. Something has happened in your body and the body doesn't like it. It's trying to push you out all the time, the toxic thing which is producing, like auto-antibodies. We're extremely good at inventing names, I tell you. When I was a medical student, we invented a word called iatrogenic. Have you heard of this word? It's called iatrogenic idiopathic thrombocytopenic purpura. It looks fantastic, big long name, you can't mug it up. Iatrogenic means we have created it. Idiopathic, we don't know why it is occurred. Thrombocytic, it makes clots. Purpura, little spots appear on the skin. So we just convert the whole thing into Latin, which you can't understand, give a high fluent name. Because people are happy to go home with the name. If I say, you got a disease, but I don't know what's going on, they say, what the hell, this doctor doesn't know what he's talking about. That's exactly what we are telling, in a different name. So these are all the same thing, like here is a chronic fatigue syndrome. Oh, I got a virus infection, I can't get out of bed, and she's sleeping all the time. What the hell is going on? Absolutely nothing to find pathologically. We cannot. It's a mental, but a mental thingy is inflamed. Why? Because it's depressed, and when you're depressed, various hormones comes into play as well. So it is an inflammatory response in the brain because of mood changes. Kids with asthma get an asthma. Kids without asthma suddenly get an asthma attack in the hospital. So what the hell is it? Why is she wheezing? Oh, the mother has gone away, the kid is getting wheezed. Huh? There's no reason this guy could, but it did. It's true. Eczema, mother goes away on holiday. The child is getting eczema, scratching all over the place. Psychologically, you can create diseases, and they can be chronic problems. Oh, sorry. So this is white blood cells. I put this purposely because you will find this very useful. When an infection or inflammation or anything which comes and tries to attack you, the first line of defense is the neutrophils. Okay? Majority of the people I have spoken to, including my colleagues in my branch, in my surgery, they don't really understand this very well. Oh, neutrophils is very high. Oh, no problem, it's got bacterial infection. So the thing is, neutrophil goes very high because they are the first line of defense. Okay? They come, they look at it, okay, I'll beat you up and kill the bacteria, and then that's it, finished. But in the meantime, they die as well. So the thing, neutrophil can go up and suddenly come down. The second line of defense is lymphocytes. But the neutrophils cannot win a war, they call for help. It's just like Britain attacking some country. Oh, no problem, we're going to kill it. We can't do it. The Americans, please help us. The Germans, help us, That kind of a thing. The lymphocytes come in. Oh, we are superheroes, we want to do it. This happens, example I'll give you is tuberculosis. Tuberculosis is not killed by neutrophils. They gulp it, but they can't digest it. The tuberculosis, the neutrophils takes them in, gulps, can't kill it. So neutrophil is trying to figure out how to kill it, so it lives longer. As it lives longer, it produces more and more lobes. So we named it islets of Langerhans. Beautiful name, isn't it? Somebody called Langerhans invented it, found it. So it is named after him. So they stay there. So islet Langerhans. That doesn't. So what happens? It tells the lymphocytes. These are all again chemical signals. They call it immune, markers, immune stimulating, IgG, and all sorts of nonsense. It's all just because I want my name in the papers. So something happens, some signal goes there, and this one comes up. So if you have a patient who's like meningitis, I've seen, I got by surprise, the blood test results were normal. It was in a child with a small one little dot, as somebody had poked it with a pin. They said it's a non-blanching rash. I looked at it, can't be true. It looks like a needle prick. Next morning, the child was seriously ill. Why? Because I looked at the blood test results. The neutrophils were normal. Why was it normal? It had gone up, and because some of them have died, it has come down. The lymphocytes hasn't gone up yet when I looked at the blood results. So it was normal. Blood is normal. Child looks okay now. It's got a little spot on it. His temperature is high. It doesn't matter. But I'm not going to do a lumbar puncture on it based on that, because it's an invasive procedure. And I'm not going to subject this child because I don't know what's going on with the child. So I let it go. And then after 20 hours, lymphocytes weight goes up. And that is how, when the lymphocytes goes up, oh yeah, this is a virus infection. Why? The bacteria couldn't kill the virus. Or some other organism couldn't. So that's called lymphocytic response. And if these two fails, then other things goes up. Eosinophil will go up if you have a parasite like Ascaris lumbricoides, amoebiasis, or allergy as well. People with eczema, they are allergic and they are all due to mast cells. So what happens? Eosinophils will go up. People without understanding it properly, which one goes up when, you get completely confused because you read a disease and maga calls it, then another one. So when it comes in a format, you can figure out. But I was not in that situation. I was in a situation where somebody is being brought in coma. This child was found in the sea. This child was found in the street. So where do I start? So I had to understand all the things and bring it together and analyze it. So this is how you do it. You do the blood test, look at it. So you can derive it. So you don't need the blood test if you understand the basic of it. Based on the clinical symptom itself, you can diagnose so many things. Is there any question? All of you are very quiet. Is this how they are in the class all the time?
I'm surprised as well.
Am I talking nicely or am I just boring them?
No, it's interesting. You're doing great.
Sure?
Yeah.
You want me to continue? Or shall I put on some film which you want to watch? Okay. Then comes the allergy. Hay fever. This is also a word invented by us. Allergy means I don't know what's going on. They talk about this and that. I worked in AstraZeneca in 1980s. We were trying to find treatment which can cure asthma. Even today we don't know really. But we're just giving inhalers. So allergy. This is one of the most common things which you will as a chemist come across. If you don't know anything, most common thing is allergy acutely happen. Most of the time they'll be itchy because the body doesn't know how to react to the allergen. It produces lots of mast cells thinking it can 5H2 chemicals is released thinking that it can kill that allergic thing because it can't find an organism to swallow. It's called opsonization. So the white cell tries to kill it with all sorts of chemicals, but it doesn't work, and the chemical itself will produce the reactions, and you have to digest it. The other thing I always find is the cough and colds and allergies. It's very important. There's a big, if you go to Google, you will get, I also got this from Google, allergy difference and cold difference. What is this word cold? Anybody got any idea of that word? It's not a medical disease. Any idea? It was actually, I think, when I was a student, I remember somebody telling me that cold was a word invented by the Americans, which actually explained asthma, chronic obstructive lung disease. And that had runny nose, wheezy chest, and breathless. Whereas there was another one called COPD. The British doctor said called COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. So pulmonary and lung are one and the same. Pulmonary is lungs. Lungs means pulmonary. They're different languages. So we are getting confused. How can you the same thing? So they replaced it. So cold, they say common cold caused by viruses. There is no specific virus. Flu is caused by specific virus and specific organism in between virus. It's called H. influenzae and flu virus. Okay? So they have different classes in the A, B, C, D, E, they're given names. But they're all viruses basically. Flu is caused by. But that's one disease. The cold is not one. It's got millions of viruses. There's no treatment for it. Runny nose. Runny nose, somebody calls me and said, Doctor, I've got a runny nose child who's got high fever. Can you admit this child? Mother is very anxious. I always ask, what the hell? What am I treating there? Why? Because virus, I don't think this child should be admitted in the hospital because he's going to go home with other infections from the hospital. So I don't want a healthy virus infected child to come into the hospital. Why? Because when you have virus infection, people don't know this. The immunity is the rock bottom. You don't have a method to protect yourself from the bacterial invasion. So if your immunity is low, you go to hospital, think, oh yeah, no problem, everybody's coming, giving me a get well card and you sleep there. You're not really dying, you're just there because you want to be. I've seen people come there, enjoy themselves, flirting with the nurses. Okay? It's true. I'm very 100% honest, I'll tell you exactly what I see. Because that is the only way you can win this war against the germs. So, cold. So all these things, allergy, cold and all is all nonsense. You got to, I will go through that in the later stage. I'll tell you how to differentiate it. So I'm going to talk about cough, because these are the common symptoms which you're going to see day to day in your pharmacy, in the hospital, wherever you work. You're all BSc students or MSc students?
I'm undergraduate.
Undergraduate. So when you finish,
Third year. Next year will be last year.
okay. So they'll be working in pharmacy, boots, kind of a chemist and all. Yeah. So these are the common things you're going to come across. You don't have to know the whole textbook. I'm telling you, it's a waste of time, because even I don't know. I go and refer afterwards, because anything which is going to happen slowly is going to happen. It's going to pop up and die. If you're going to die, just call them 999. Okay, that's it. I'm not going to think or worry about it, because if you keep worrying about it, you will never live your life. So cough is a very important common symptom. So you have to remember, first you ask them the common things. When is it happening? Is it happening in the morning, night or day or all the time? Only in the morning. How can you get an infection with cough in the morning? The infection goes only in the morning or what? But whatever it is, that's it. Dry cough is 99% associated with virus infection. Why? It could be a pneumonitis. In other words, the wall of the alveoli is thickened. Whereas dry cough is an asthma. Why? Because there is excessive secretions in the lung, because body doesn't know how to get rid of this allergic thing which has gone in. It produces more water. That's why when allergy hits your nose, you have runny nose. First you might sneeze, hutch, so that it goes away, because there are little membranes and pillates there which say, go away, you silly fellow, don't come into my nose. But they can't. Then you start pouring water. The cells will swell up and start pouring water so that it is washed off. It's just like you're doing the car cleaning in front of your house. So it tries to get rid of by producing water. But people interpret it as runny nose. It isn't. It's a swelling which has occurred. The allergy is there. It's only in the nose. In the night, I cough. Why? The secretions are going to, jump out like a fountain in the night. You're sleeping with the head down and it's getting into the lungs. I told you, inflammation is a protective reflex. Cough is a reflex, otherwise we'll all be drowned. Majority of the people with stroke die because they have drowned themselves with the secretion, because they don't have cough reflex. Cough is there to protect you. It's not chest infection. I'll tell you about chest infection soon. So basically, you must remember, cough occurs because productive symptoms. When I graduated, we didn't have all the high fluent tests to differentiate between bacteria. It was expensive. I was working in a bush village in India where people can't even buy antibiotics. Okay? They can't afford it. I can't do tests. I can't do x-rays. I have to treat them. How would I differentiate? At that time, we used to, what is the color of the sputum? Green. Okay, give him penicillin. Otherwise, no. So that is all useless. Because here when I came, I tried to find out whether it is association. It is not associated. Wheezing. Wheezing occurs when the airway is about to close, not completely closed. Asthmatics who does not wheeze is not a common symptom. It's a serious symptom. You should be in the hospital because the airway is completely closed. Okay? So wheeze. When you give them, if you don't know what to do, give them a Ventolin. Put it in the little tube and say, take this. And they take it, and then you see the wheeze. Why? The airway is becoming a little bit open. So, in the community, you can afford a patient coming to hospital. Because when they come into hospital, people like me don't see them. First the nurse will come down, oh, what's happened, no problem. Then the junior doctor will come in, who just passed out of medical school, had a hangover night, last night, next day morning. I'm so tired. And he comes. Oh, Oscar, give me Ventolin or something. They don't even think about it. Just put him on some antibiotic. And then the patient stays there for 3-4 days and probably goes home with another infection to come back again. So it is a recurring cycle. Asthmatics coming and going. They're all sick. So the barking cough is usually because of pneumonitis, as I said, whooping cough and things like that. Croup is another one because they're swelling in the throat. They make noise. They usually wake up in the morning, 3 o'clock. 99% of all these chest problems occurs at 3 o'clock in the morning. I started seeing them very acutely ill in the hospital. 3 o'clock, why are the asthmatics coming at 3 o'clock? And then I found out there is something to do with the atmosphere. all chest problems gets worse at 3 o'clock in the morning. Asthmatics go bad, and especially croup. And there is an infection which I used to see was called epiglottitis, which disappeared. Epiglottitis was tracheolaryngeal bronchitis, or inflammation of the trachea and the larynx. It swells up immediately. It used to happen because H influenza. But now because of the vaccination, it went down, disappeared, but it's coming back. H influenza has become resistant. So you will see this. They usually come anytime, not only at 3 o'clock, they come with drooling saliva because they can't swallow. They look anxious. Anybody with chest problem will look as if someone throat, choking them because they can't get enough air. They're always scared. And they can't cry, they can't scream because the lung is so tight. So anybody with the anxious looking, worried, unable to breathe, in the future you must always remember this epiglottitis, which most of us have forgotten. So I told you about coughing in the morning and night. And there's another one which 3 o'clock in the morning the patients get up and start hungry for air. They go to the window, open and they are not respiratory problems. It's called orthopnea. They got heart problems. So many times I have come across in my surgery, patient coming in the morning because the nurses or somebody was giving them an antibiotic. They would almost come to see me in the morning at 9 o'clock, so almost ready to go to death because there is a delay. And orthopnea is something which you... How do you differentiate between the two? The lung and the heart problem. Any idea? Just look for edema. Just ask them to show that the legs. Legs are swollen? Yes. That means to say there is fluid retention in the body. So when they lie down like this, the fluid gets into the lungs and makes them choke. That is congestive cardiac failure. It's a very common one. There's nothing else you can do. You don't need to listen to your chest. You don't need an X-ray. You don't need blood. Just common sense, really. And that is what I am trying to drum it into your head. If you haven't understood, please stop me, because from today onwards, you're going to go home in the evening and say, I know what I'm doing. You're not going to go home and say, oh, I'm going there, I don't know what kind of patients are going to come. That happens in my life every day. So I want you to go home and be sure that you can deal with all sorts of problems just the way I do or I did. Okay? So, this one is such a tiny one. Okay, any questions with cough? The cough and chest infection. To tell you frankly, chest infection is nothing but pneumonia. Okay? What is pneumonia? That was the infection which killed millions and millions of people in 1918. That is post-Spanish flu epidemic. Spanish flu didn't kill them. It was the pneumonia which killed them. Pneumonia was caused by Staphylococcus and Streptococcus, mostly Staphylococcus aureus. And majority of the people died. As I said, virus infection is always followed by bacteria. They didn't have antibiotics, so they all died. So, pneumonia does not present with cough. It's a wrong assumption. The chest infection is coughing. Why? As soon as the infection occurs, I told you, we have the defense mechanism. What does it do? The blood comes into the lung quickly. And it's all choked with blood, with white cells ready for a war if you want to kick the bacteria out. So within minutes, they become breathless. I've never come across a pneumonia child or an adult coming with cough, because they cannot cough. I've given you what you are waiting for, and if there's anything I can do, don't hesitate to contact me. I'm always available. Okay? Good luck and thank you very much.
Just say something to add on Dr. Srivatsa, what he said. You guys are going to be the future pharmacists. There's not only the role in terms of what he mentioned. He's really good example. Someone with a runny nose, they don't know how to get the drug, get the medication. So part of our role is really understand the science behind it. Not only just practice as dispensing, because that's easy. We love medicines. Our role is really to excel in that. So thank you very much for your question.